Hey everyone, as always, last minute tweaks to get the stream working. I thought there was no audio, but it looks like it's actually working now. So thumbs up if you guys can actually hear me in the chat there. And I'm gonna very quickly pull up the video here on my YouTube Studio account. So I decided I wanted to do a video about budget intercom options, and a number of videos that I have to get edited is piling up quite a bit, and so I decided to do this one as live. And you guys can certainly pipe in with questions, although I'm not really going to be watching the chat room as I'm talking about this. Bit quiet. It might be a bit quiet. I'm actually using OBS for the first time, so see if there's something weird. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. So, turn the audio up a little bit. So using OBS to do this stream so that I could do it in 4K because I don't have any other 4K encoders. But yeah, sound is present. Thanks, Spencer. So anyway, so yeah, I'm going to do this as a live video. It's going to mostly flow like my regular videos here on the channel, but at the end I'll go back and look at any questions that anybody has asked while in the process of shooting this. So anyway, so the other thing I'm doing here is 4K. I'm streaming in 4K. So if you have a device that's capable of streaming in 4K and your internet connection is fast enough, try it out and let me know how it looks in the comments. This is the first time I've actually streamed 4K on my channel here. Like most of the time when I'm streaming, I use my Video Go, and that's a 1080p only device. And so this is a little bit new, streaming 4K. The other thing, and I'm shooting this in HLG HDR, and that video is going out to YouTube, but I have no way of flagging it as HDR, and so it's going to come across as SDR. So I'm doing a recording of this, and if I got time, I'll go back and re-upload with the HDR set properly. So something new, something to try. This is a bit of an experiment. So anyway, the purpose of today's video is to talk about some budget intercom options. It's one of those questions I get a lot. Like, what should I get for intercom, but I don't have a lot of money to spend? And there's some things that people are getting that I think are probably mistakes that won't work for them well in the long term. They might work short term, might work okay short term, but I think they're probably doing themselves a serious disservice by not saving up a little bit and getting something that doesn't necessarily cost that much more, but does a much better job. So I'm going to save my final recommendation for what I think most people should be aiming for right now for the end of the video. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you're thinking. There's some industry standard intercom things that are out there, and the one I'm going to recommend is not. You're not going to find that on anybody else's list, I don't think. But I think it works really well, and it's also very future-proof. So what is my 4K encoder today? I'm using the Ultra Studio 4K from Blackmagic, and it's going into my Dell XPS laptop and being encoded using OBS. Which again, I'm not normally an OBS user, but I wanted to try it out just as kind of an experiment to see how well it works. And surprisingly, it's not really occupying much of the CPU on this laptop. It's mostly doing work on the NVIDIA GPU that I have in there. It's using NVENC to do the encoding. So how's the video look? Yeah, so you can see us and see me in better detail. I'm not sure that's necessarily a great thing. So you can see that I've aged a little bit more than maybe people think I have. So anyway, I'm going to start off with probably the worst option I've seen for intercom, and I've seen this used many times. And I happen to have one right here. That's two-way radio. I've seen a lot of budget productions where they just go to their local store, pick up a bunch of two-way radios, FRS usually, and use those for communication. And while yes, they can work, there's a lot of reasons that they're not ideal. First of all, it's a single duplex, and half duplex, so only one person can talk at a time. And during a production, when the director needs to talk to camera operators pretty much continuously, that means that either the camera operators can't talk back, or the director has to not key down when he's talking to give the people that are on the other end a chance to reply. That's problematic, and not very much not an ideal way to go. I've been on a number of productions. I've worked on a number of productions where we've used two-way radios, and it's a hassle. It's a real problem, and especially as a director, if you're not, well, first of all, you're not legally supposed to key down all the time on any of these radios. You're supposed to only key down when you're actively talking. Take a break. I don't remember what the interval is, but I think you're not supposed to talk for more than like 2 minutes or something like that, according to FCC rules here in the U.S. And then you're supposed to take a break and allow anybody else who wants to use the channel to use the channel, because I mean these are public frequencies, and unless you buy your own frequency, which would be silly considering there's cheaper options, using these radios is really not ideal for trying to do communication between members of a video crew. But again, I've seen it done many times. There's one event that I help out on fairly regularly. It's a mixed martial arts event that I very often will direct. I'll be the TD on that, and all they have on that is two-way radios. They're actually business radios, so it's a little more geared towards what they're doing. They're not the GMRS or FRS like this one, but it's a real pain because, like, when I'm directing, I like to keep my fingers on my left hand on the video input buttons on the preview bus, and then I have my right hand to operate the auto and cut and set up the upstream and downstream keys and whatever. That leaves me no hands to operate the radio. So one of two things happens. Either I have to use my right hand and then switch on the bus, or switch my left hand back and forth, or do some sort of awkward, try and press down on the button while I'm using that same hand to operate the panel for the switcher. Not ideal. Very much not ideal. Sound quality on these is not great. It can be sometimes hard to understand people, and a lot of these things aren't loud enough for people on the other end to hear if you're working in a loud environment. So this is kind of really the bottom of the barrel, about the worst option you can come up with when you need intercom. You need to communicate between your director and your camera operators. So I'd say avoid it. I mean, there's certainly much better options, and some of which don't really cost a whole lot. So that's option 1. All right, so next one. Phones. This has become an option in the last few years to use your phone in order to communicate between members of your crew. So you can either make a conference call, call into a conference bridge, have everybody call into a conference bridge and talk to each other that way, or use a dedicated app, and there are a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to call any out, but there are a bunch of different apps that are used for group chat. And you can do a Zoom call. You can do like a Discord. There's any number of options that are possible there, and that can work. But again, you're doing something that is not meant to do. Every one of these things has latency, and as a director, that's very frustrating when I try to talk to a camera operator and say take or whatever, and they start their move late because they're hearing my audio late. There's also issues of battery life. Even a big beefy phone like this, you're going to run on battery issues if you're doing long productions. So in addition, the headset options for these things are generally not great. Bluetooth is what most people are using. Bluetooth headsets are what most people are using for these things, or like AirPods or something like that. Those are not great in loud environments. The sound quality on them is not good to start with. So a lot of compromises are being made there. It can work. The other big problem is connectivity. When you're doing this, you're either going through Wi-Fi or you're going through a cellular network, which is fine if you're in an environment where there aren't a lot of people. But if you're doing a big concert or something like that, and there are hundreds or thousands of people there, connectivity becomes a real problem. Even if you have your own private Wi-Fi network, all those phones in that venue are interfering with your signal, and you're very likely to experience dropouts or other issues. So I don't recommend using phones. It can work in a pinch, but it's not something that I would recommend. So, but speaking of phones, there is one solution that I want to call out here, and it's becoming fairly popular. This is a purpose-made piece of software. It's called Unity Intercom, and this allows you to do a lot of cool things, such as having remote people on a party line. So if you got, say for example, your technical director was working remotely, they could join the Unity Intercom from anywhere in the world, really, because it works over the internet. This is becoming fairly popular. especially on a lot of these productions where there are remote parts of the crew. So it can work well. It uses your phone. There's a couple different ways to go with this particular option. You can either do your own server on site, where you buy your own computer, run software on that, and then all the phones or whatever in that venue connect to that. Or you can use, they have a cloud option where you actually, all the phones connect to a server up on the internet, and both can work. There's pros and cons to each. The big con that I see to these is primarily pricing. This is actually pretty expensive. So if you take a look at the license, the base server license is $600, and that only lets you have 3 users active on your intercom. And then you add additional user licenses, and they're pretty expensive. You know, 2 user licenses, $240. This can really add up. The cloud functionality is a little bit cheaper in the long run. Well, not in the long run, but it's a little bit. It can be a little bit cheaper for people who aren't operating this frequently. You know, if you're only doing occasional events where you need this, it's feasible. And there's some cool things you can do with this. If you have a local server, you can integrate audio from other sources. So if you got your program audio you want to incorporate as part of your stream, you can certainly do that. Again, there's some cool things there. I think it's way overpriced personally, and I wouldn't use this myself just because of the pricing. There are much more affordable options out there, especially if you don't need the remote capability. The remote capability is cool. Only available in the cloud version, by the way. But anyway, not something that I really like just because of the pricing. But there are a bunch of people that I've interacted with who do really like this and kind of swear by it. So that's another option as well. Okay, now let's actually get into some of the more traditional options that we have out there. So, actually, well, before I do that, let's take a look at a couple of the lower cost options that I know a lot of people are using. Here's one from EarTech. This is, yeah, there we go. So, EarTech wireless system. So this is, what do they call this? The ultralight, I think. Yeah, ultralight. These use, basically it's cordless phone technology. You guys remember cordless phones before everybody had cell phones? So these use cordless phone technology. These are fairly inexpensive, still kind of pricey for what they are in my opinion, but it's one of the more affordable options that's out there. So I've used these on a couple of productions, and I'm not really a fan of them, to be honest. I found that they were very quiet. I found that the sound quality was not that good. And the battery life on them, the ones I used, it could be the batteries were worn out, but we had to change the batteries halfway through the day. We only got about 4 or 5 hours out of a battery, and I had to swap them out, which means you have to have multiple batteries and multiple chargers, and remember to charge the batteries and change the batteries during the middle of an event. So, not what I would call ideal. But again, my main problem with these was the sound quality. It sounded like a bad telephone. And it was very, very quiet. So not something I would typically recommend for somebody, though I understand because of its cost that there are a lot of people that use this. And a lot of them are fairly happy with it. Maybe because they haven't experienced anything much better. Alright, so next one is one I've actually reviewed here on this channel. This is the Hollyland Mars T1000. And I do have one of those handy as well. So this is a step up from the EarTech, although it does use very similar technology. I never gotten confirmation from the company, but I think it does use the same DECT wireless technology that cordless phones use. The sound quality on these is a step up from the EarTech, but I would still not call it good. This system in particular seemed to have a lot of trouble if there's any background noises coming through the microphone. Say if you're in a concert environment and you got loud music going, it becomes basically impossible to understand what somebody's saying on the other end. They don't handle non-speech audio very well at all. And when I've incorporated these, I've had these for 6 months. When I incorporate these into my intercom system, I have to make sure that I'm not sending program audio unless it's just speech into the people that are wearing the Hollyland system. Again, it's based on, I believe, based on cordless phone technology, so it's really not made for high quality audio. So, Anyway, all right, now let's step up to kind of some of the industry standards that are out there. So the most common one you're going to find, old analog system that are very popular, that have been used for years and years. It's been around for decades. This is Clearcom. This is their old analog system. They call it the Encore system. I don't think it's always been named that, but that's what they're calling it today. Uses XLR audio cables to send audio between stations, and because they've been around for forever, you can pick these things up cheap. You can pick up some old ones for next to nothing, relatively speaking. I'm still kind of expensive, but compared to the other options that are out there, you can pick these up fairly inexpensively. And Clearcom has been much more tolerant of people cloning their equipment than some of the alternatives. The other big player, at least in the past, is RTS systems, and RTS has not been very friendly with people trying to copy and clone their system. But Clearcom has been more okay with it, and so you'll find a lot of systems out there that are compatible with Clearcom that are not made by Clearcom. But these are purpose-built. They're made for broadcast environments, so they tend to be loud enough. They tend to have good enough sound quality. They tend to work really well in punishing environments. So, you know, this is kind of what I would consider the baseline for a professional level intercom for doing video production. And I personally have never owned a Clearcom branded system, but I had another one. I can't remember the brand of it, but I had another one that's compatible, and it worked fairly well. But I sold it because it was getting, I mean, it's old technology. It's been around for decades, probably 40 years or more. It's old, you know. It works fairly well. It has some limitations. It's kind of susceptible to noise. The body packs have to be tweaked in order to get the highest quality sound on them. You know, you have to adjust the null and some other things in order to make them really sound halfway decent. And they sound much better than a telephone, but it's still not what I would call super high quality audio. It's good, not amazing. But it is purpose built for video production, and it's been used on probably millions of productions in the past. And you're not going to go wrong with a system like that, but I would hesitate to buy something like this because they are still expensive, even though they've been around for a long time. And there are, I think, better options that are available today. So, I mean, if you can pick up one of these things used for next to nothing, then go ahead and do it. You know, it's going to work well for you. And I don't think anybody's ever been punished for buying a Clearcom system. You know, they do work well, but it is old technology. It's analog. So what that said, what does it take to actually make a system like this work? So there are a few components you need. Like one of them is shown here. This is the main station. This is just one example. Did I mark another one? You know, like here's another main station. This is the CS702. This comes up. My browser's been really slow today. So this is another main station. So you have a main station which provides a place for, well, it basically provides power for the entire system. So this powers all of the intercom belt packs that you've got anywhere on the line. And then once you've got that, then you basically just add belt packs. There's an example of a very common belt pack. That's what it looks like. And then you got your connectivity on the bottom. And you notice there's two connections for intercom. That's because it can be used in a daisy chain fashion. So you've got your cable coming from your main station, going to your belt pack, and then you can have a cable going from that belt pack to another belt pack. So you just chain one after another. There are some limitations as to how many you can chain like that, but generally speaking, it's not necessarily something you run into in the real world. But anyway, so very common. Work pretty well. The main downside I see to these is not the systems themselves, but the headsets. The headsets for these things tend to be outrageously expensive. This is one of the cheaper ones that are out there. This is the Beyerdynamic DT108, and I happen to have several of those just kind of hanging around here. You know, it's a different color, but it's the same model. And this is the cheap one, $200 for a headset. And they sound okay, but they're not amazing. The one advantage these have compared to like a regular computer style headset is the microphone on them tends to be fairly directional, so it's not picking up too much of the ambient sound that's in any given environment. So anyway, but the prices go up very rapidly from there. It's not uncommon to see headsets that work with Clearcom or RTS system or whatever that go well into $300, $400, $500 if you want something that's actually good. But yeah, I think that is the main downside to going into an intercom system like this. That there's a bunch of pieces you need to get, and each one of them can be kind of expensive. So you're talking about getting a main station, which on the low end, $700, $800, typically much more than that. So you're talking, realistically, you're probably looking at spending at least $1,300 or $1,400 for a main station. And each belt pack's going to be at least $400, and then you're talking about $200 for each headset. That adds up really, really, really fast, and it's an investment in old technology. So it's not something that I would necessarily recommend someone doing, especially at this point when there are better and more modern alternatives that are available. So with that said, let me talk a little bit about what I would actually recommend for anybody who's looking for a professional quality intercom today, who's just starting out, that wants something that's going to sound great, it's going to be future proof, but can also be integrated with other things. And this is kind of the approach that I've taken. I've done videos here on my channel about the Blackmagic design system that I have, and I use their system for doing intercom with camera operators, and that has worked really, really well. I'm not going to recommend that here on this video here today, mostly because the cost is super, super high if you're only doing intercom. If you need to do video and stuff over fiber, then it's actually very affordable. But if you're just doing intercom, that system doesn't really make any sense. It's too costly for that, and it requires too much outside infrastructure in order to make it sound really good. So with that, let me actually get to what I am recommending now. So this is going to seem a little bit funny, but Dante, the technology by Audinate for sending audio over Ethernet networks, is very fast becoming a part of the intercom world. It has been on the super high-end stuff for a while, but we're getting to the point now where it's actually becoming quite affordable, to the point where you can build a Dante-based system like what I'm going to show you for less than you can build a Clearcom system. And the sound quality on the Dante stuff just absolutely blows away everything else that's out there. So let me show you a couple pieces. So these are pieces from Studio Technologies. I have some of them, and I'll show you one of them here in more detail in a minute. But this is the Marla 370A belt pack. This is a 2-channel, so you can listen to 2-channel, you can talk to either of the 2 channels. It does have a call button to get the attention of somebody who doesn't have their headset on or whatever. But it uses Dante, so you look on the bottom and it's got an Ethernet jack on it. And it's actually powered over Ethernet as well, so you're only running one cable from your network switch, in this case a power over Ethernet network switch, to the body packs, and then it has a headset jack. Now this 370A only has the headset connector that are used for higher end intercom systems. In this case it's the 5-pin, which you typically find on the RTS, instead of the 4-pin that you normally find with Clearcom. Which means normally you'd be locked into using those same expensive headsets that you'd have to use with a Clearcom or RTS system or whatever. They also have this other model, which is the one that I have. This is the 372A. It's kind of a channel and a half. You can listen to 2 channels but only talk on one. But the advantage that this one has over the other is that on the base, in addition to the multi-pin headset connector, it also has this TRRS jack right here. And what that allows you to do is to use computer-style headsets. And I have one of the HyperX Cloud Stinger series headsets here, and it plugs right into the bottom of this. Let me actually show you guys an overhead shot. So it plugs into the bottom of this thing, and so you've only got the 2 connections. You've got your Dante Ethernet coming in here, and then your PC style, gaming style headset plugging in there, and this combination works really, really well, and it costs less than the equivalent Clearcom system. So this body pack you can get at Marketech for $385, which compared to some options, yes, it is more money, but it's less money than the Clearcom body packs. And then the headset I picked up for $40, so you're talking just over $400 per user for this system. And I know some of you out there are like, well, but the Dante mixer or whatever is going to be super, super expensive, and you're going to push past the price of the Clearcom system. Well, maybe that would normally be true, but what Studio Technologies has done, they've released these Intercom audio engine devices. This is the 5421. This is 16 channels, so it'll take up to 16 audio channels in, send audio back out to 16 devices. This thing is $800, so it's considerably less than the Clearcom main stations that are out there, and you're getting Dante, so you're getting super high quality, 48 kilohertz, 24-bit audio, sounds amazing, and you're doing it for less than you can get a Clearcom system. If you need more channels than that, they also do have a 5422. Let's see if I can very quickly navigate to one of those. Like 5422, they have a 1 and 2 suffix on 2 different models. So this one does 32 channels, and this one does 64. Although it's 30, it's 2 groups of 32. So a little odd there. This is a rack mount unit, and these are $2,200 to $2,700. So you're talking a little bit more money. But unless you need more than 16 channels, the 5421 actually works really, really well. That said, I personally don't have one. I've gone with another solution for doing my Dante audio mixing, and I've got a video coming up about that. I've completely redone the intercom in my trailer here in the last few weeks, and I'm using Dante, and I've gone with a different solution for mixing audio other than this. It's different than this 5421. But that's part of the beauty of it. You can mix and match. So, you know, if this 5421 doesn't meet your needs, you can go and get something else. It also means that you can do a lot of interactivity between different things. So, in the case of my trailer here, I've got my program audio coming out of my Yamaha TF3 mixer, coming out of Dante, going into my mixer that I use for my intercom. And so I don't have to have any audio cables there. It's all just part of the Ethernet connection that's already in place for communicating with these devices. So, a lot of cool advantages to this, and it's surprising that you can build a system like this actually less expensively than you can a Clearcom system if you're buying something new. So there's also some other cool advantages because it's network-based. The configuration for these things is done remotely. So I was on a production a few weeks ago, and I needed to modify the gain on one of the body packs. I'd forgotten to adjust the gain on the microphone side because I had swapped out the headset itself. The headset I put on there didn't have as much gain as the microphone that I'd used previously. So I launched the application on the computer here in the trailer, logged into the device, changed the gain remotely. I didn't have to go and physically touch the device in order to make that configuration change. There are also some other cool things you can do with those. You can adjust how much side tone level there is, so how much person hears their own audio. Control which channels are heard on which side of the headset. So you can say channel 1 is always on the left, channel 1 is always on the right, or channel 1 is on left and right, and channel 2 is just on right, whatever. You can do all those configuration changes remotely through software because it is all done over Ethernet. So, anyway, bottom line is, if you only have a couple of $1,000s to spend on an intercom and you want something that's super high quality, surprisingly, this Dante-based solution is actually more affordable than an old-school analog Clearcom or RTS system or whatever, and you're getting way, way, way better results. So, with that said, I'm actually going to go into the chat here. All right. Okay, Spencer saying he's used Unity, so yeah. Okay, all right. Walkie-talkies are laughable for live communication. Yes, they absolutely are. So if you're tempted to do it, just don't. Like, if nothing else, rent an intercom system. If you don't have the budget to buy one, you can rent one somewhere. Let's see, Dames, I presume all deck-based intercom systems sound like telephone. Yes, they do, because it's telephone technology. And audio from telephones is limited spectrum. You don't really get much below 300 hertz or much more than 3 kilohertz, and so it sounds bad. So Clearcom systems will skyrocket your budget in a snap. Absolutely, yes, they do. Alrighty, wireless in general will cost significantly more. Yeah, wireless intercom is something that I didn't even want to address in this video, really. Things get extremely pricey very quickly, aside from the ear tech and Hollyland systems that I showed. But those are, like I say, they're using DECT. Range is not amazing. They're usually, audio quality is usually not great, and they do not handle outside noise very well at all. So let's see. A-Town asking, can you go wireless with a Dante system? Dante itself does not work over any wireless technologies, including Wi-Fi. So what you would do is you'd have some sort of other wireless system that you tie into Dante, and that's what I've done with mine. So I've got my Hollyland Mars system, and I have that connected into my Dante, just a simple A to D conversion like I would for anything else, like a microphone or speaker or whatever. And that goes in system, which is then converted to Dante, which goes into the mixer. So at that point I am getting wireless and I am getting Dante, both at the same time. So yeah. Raza, I mean, didn't tune in this now. Looks like WhatsApp messages and waving my arms at the camera crew will a thing of the past. Yeah, if you're doing that, I feel sorry for you. So, okay. Let's see, Spencer. Well, these Studio Technologies pack, can you send them a stereo signal? Well, you don't call it a stereo signal, but what you do is you send them two independent channels. So, this, like I mentioned earlier, this does have two channels of input on it, and you can send left and right on here, and then you go in the configuration of the device and you send channel 1 to the left side and channel 2 to the right side. So you can actually do stereo on these if you want to. It's a little strange that you're adjusting the volume of the two sides independently with the knobs here, but it can work. I'm actually a big proponent of stereo intercom because it's very easy. It's much easier for your brain to decipher two different audio sources if they're coming from your different ears than if they're just laying on top of one another at the same level in both ears. So if you've got two different channels of intercom, send one to the left, send one to the right, and people have a much easier time understanding that than they will if it's all just kind of merged into one single signal. Playman saying, the only place I disagree, the Unity is too expensive. It may be priced similar to other intercom systems, but I think it's not a great value proposition in terms of what they're doing. They're not doing anything that's very sophisticated. They're taking audio, converting it to something like an MP3 and sending it over the network, which goes to a piece of software, and it's mixed and then redistributed. There is nothing complicated about that at all. It's something that systems like Zoom and whatever are doing for free, and Unity is charging an absolute fortune for it. So, if you build your own server, you're talking about the cost of the hardware, and they run on Macs, so you're looking at least a Mac Mini, so 700 and up. And it doesn't work on the M1s, by the way. 700 and up, and then you're talking $600 for the base software license, plus about another 120-ish for each user. So if you got a crew of 8 people, you're talking a lot of money just to get going. And that doesn't even include hardware, phones or whatever you want to add in there. So I think it's overpriced for what it is. So if you need the remote capability, yes, I can see using Unity. But for something on site, there's far better options. You can get a Dante-based system for less than a Unity system. So, okay. D-Media asking which PIP I'm using. This is, well, it's something that my video switcher does. It's A10. I have the ATEM 2ME Production Studio 4K. It has Super Source, and I'm using my macros software that I've made available for free in order to do these animations. So as I press the different buttons, it animates between different video sources. So that's Blackmagic Switcher in combination with my own software, which I've made available for free. So if it's something you want to do. So yeah. Okay, so Doug Pogue, does Dante work over a 60 gigahertz bridge? It could. The main problem you have with Dante is potential latency that gets added by some of these wireless systems. So if you've got a system where the latency is very low and very consistent, consistency is the most important thing. It can be a little bit longer. The Dante can accommodate different types of latency, different values of latency, basically. But it needs to be consistent, and that's kind of where most wireless systems fall apart. If you got interference when it tries to transmit, it has to do a retransmit, and that throws off the timing. And so, yeah, Dante over any sort of wireless doesn't necessarily work great. If you do need wireless, it may probably worthwhile to look into something else. All right, so let's see. Spencer, sending audio in and out of Unity does require an additional license fee. Yeah, so they charge for everything. You know, you sneeze and they want a license fee for it. So yeah, so Unity can work and it can do some really cool things, but the problem is that it can be very costly. So and I should also mention that the interface to go between like Unity and another local audio source like Dante, that only works if you buy your own server. It doesn't work in the cloud, so you've got that limitation there as well. Brindy saying Gringo does a budget-friendly system over Dante. That's debatable on how budget-friendly it is. Gringo is actually pretty expensive. I looked into that, and it's quite costly. It's much more affordable than anything else that much more expensive than anything else that I've talked about here today. So, Intrinsic asking if I've ever read up on Gringo. Yes, I have. So. Alright, so Spencer saying the 4K stream working well. Yes, if you're just tuning in, this is the first time I've done a live stream in 4K. For those curious, the video is going through the Blackmagic Ultra Studio 4K, going into my Dell XPS laptop, and then it's being encoded by OBS, and then being uploaded to YouTube. So, a new workflow for me. I'm experimenting to see how well this works. I've never had a customer ask for streaming in 4K, but I want to make sure that when it does come up, that I can do it and it's going to work well. So SB Live had a problem with Dante today. Curious what that is. Dante is usually pretty solid. So yeah, Dame saying Gringo and budget friendly are not in the same sentence. Yep, exactly. So okay, so D-Style asking if I can go into depth in the Hollyland bridge to Dante over wireless. 1 second and I'll grab at least a piece of it. I don't have everything to do the whole thing, so but I'll show you the most critical piece. So this is the cable that I made for interfacing my Hollyland Mars with other audio devices. So Cat 5, so just a RJ45 on one end, and then XLR in and out. And so that T1000 base station does have line level audio input and output on it. So at this point, all I have to do is take this and then plug it into my Yamaha TIO 1608. So yeah, one input, one output, and that puts it on my Dante network, and on that network I can then send it into the mixer that I'm using for doing all of my intercom. So yeah, pretty simple. This cable was trivial to make. I just took an existing Cat 5 cable, cut the end off, put some heat shrink tubing over it, and then added a couple of XLRs. And the wiring diagram for doing that is in the manual for the T1000. So that maybe took me all of 15 minutes to do. Real simple, real easy. So Andre asking what speed internet do you have for streaming 4K? I'm pretty lucky here. I have gigabit up and down, and I'm connected into one of the ISPs that's connected directly into the main internet backbone that comes through Utah. And so I have amazing bandwidth all of the time with extremely low latency. Usually when I run a speed test, I get latency as low as 2, although I have seen 1 millisecond, and my transfer speeds are always up well over 900 megabits per second. So, but this stream I am doing at 12 megabit. I just wanted to see how that looked. So, what do you guys think? Is the bitrate high enough for high quality, or should I try and go higher for next time? So, okay, Ryan saying if you're looking for a matrix intercom system, Gringo is definitely the cheapest way to go for sure. I'm not sure that I would necessarily agree with that. If you were going for a more traditional matrix-based system, then maybe. But going with a system based on Dante, you can get a lot of the capabilities of a matrix system. So basically the matrix system, for those who are not familiar with it, is it gives you the ability to route your signals however you want. So me as a director, I want to talk to this one camera operator, or I want to talk to the guy that's running lights. I can press a button and send my audio directly to one of those. And I've actually achieved that exact same thing here in my trailer using a Dante-based system. And when I finally get around to doing my video about my new intercom, I will demonstrate that to you guys. But all the stations here in the trailer can say, I only want to talk to this one person or this one party line or whatever just by pressing a button. So I effectively have the capability of a matrix system and have it, and did it very affordably. The software was free. It's actually using BitFocus Companion to do that that routing, and it just took a little bit of my time in order to program Companion to do that. So, but if you want something that's off the shelf, then GreenGo probably is the most affordable matrix system out there. That said, most of the people that watch this channel don't necessarily need a matrix system. Most of the time we're talking about a single party line for camera operators, being able to hear direction from a technical director or whatever. So that said, intercom systems can get tremendously complicated. You know, you get into a high level event like a professional sporting event that's broadcast on ESPN or whatever. Those intercom systems are insanely complicated. You know, you have hundreds of people that need to communicate with one another, and usually you can keep most of the communications to small groups, but you need the ability to communicate between groups. So that's where your matrix systems really come into play. So, you know, director has a question, needs to ask one of the producers or something like that. They press a button to talk directly to the producer, and mute the audio going everywhere else. So, you know, matrix systems allow you to do that. But at the level of production that I typically work on, and most people that watch this channel, matrix is just not something that's really necessary, and in a lot of cases may be out of reach for what we're trying to achieve. So, thank you, Ricardo, for the donation there, and hello in Portugal. So, A-Town asking which ATEM switcher I use. I have the 2ME Production Studio 4K. It's the least expensive one that offers the super source feature that I use for doing these animations and whatnot. So yeah, so if you want to achieve that capability, that's the least expensive model that will actually do that. So Matt asking if the Hollyland connect to an analog ClearCom system. Yes, it actually can. Let me show you something else I've got here. So this box is an interface that allows you to connect audio into ClearCom. So these jacks over here connect into a ClearCom system, and then these other two are audio. So in this case, you take my cable that I made for, there we go, where's that? There we go. Made for connecting into my Hollyland, plug that in there, and bingo, you've routed the ClearCom system to your Hollyland Mars system. So pretty easy. This box is actually quite affordable. I can't remember the name of the guy who makes it. It's just an independent operator. I'll have to look that up and put a link in the description. But it's only $129, I think, for this. Whereas if you get dedicated, what they call 4-wire interface devices, they run into thousands of dollars. So, so Ivan or Yvonne asking, what are the benefits of Dante over Blackmagic? Well, Dante is universal. You know, Dante is supported very, very widely amongst a ton of different manufacturers. So you can get audio, you can route audio between different devices very easily. So in my trailer here, I have a Yamaha mixer. I have a Behringer mixer that both have Dante interface cards in them. I'm able to send audio back and forth between those things very, very easily. Where did I put it? Oh, yeah, right. Body pack, Dante. So audio from this goes into my mixer that I use for intercom, but it's also available to go into my Yamaha TF3. So if I wanted to incorporate audio from one of my operators or use this for talent, on-air talent, that audio can be routed directly into my Yamaha TF3 as well without having to physically connect any cables. It's just done via software. So you go into software and checkbox, say this source comes from here and goes to here. The Blackmagic stuff that I use, it sends the same quality of audio, 48 kilohertz, 24-bit, over fiber. So audio quality is the same. Main reason I use that though is because it does video, 2 directions video, so camera to, in my case trailer back to monitor on camera, intercom, tally, all over a single fiber cable, which the fiber stuff is actually very affordable, more so than people realize. So I'm getting intercom for free there, and that's the main reason I'm using that. So I don't have to go buy a separate intercom system in order to get communication with my camera crew. So anyway, but Dante is awesome. The other really cool thing about Dante is they have a piece of software that's called Dante Virtual Sound Card. that lets you get audio in and out of your computer just using its network connection. So you plug your computer into Ethernet, and you can send and receive audio. And I've done that quite a bit, especially recently with a lot of virtual events going on. I use the Dante virtual sound card to get audio to and from Zoom into my audio system here in the trailer, and there's no audio cable anywhere. It's all designed strictly over the network. So I just go into Zoom and say send the audio coming in from the world over to my mixer using this Dante virtual sound card, and then take the audio from my mixer, send it back to Zoom coming from the Dante virtual sound card. So a lot of cool things. And the other big one that people don't realize how much of a pain it used to be in the analog days is distributing the same audio signal to multiple locations. So I've got the main program audio coming out of my Yamaha TF3 mixer here, and I'm sending that to a ton of different places, and I don't have to have an audio distribution amplifier. It's just a subscription. So in the Dante controller software, I just take that source, it's listed up top, and then I run down the list, and every audio destination, every audio device that's on my Dante network, if it needs a copy of that program audio, it's literally just check the box. It's just a checkbox. And that same audio gets sent to as many destinations. Well, many destinations. When I finally get around to publishing my video on Dante, it'll be a little bit more clear. But you can route Dante audio to as many destinations as you want, basically, with some caveats. But anyway, so Dante, it's amazing, and the big fear I had before I got into it was that there was going to be a lot of latency with it, so you'd have delays on your signals, and that has just not been the case. The Dante controller software lets you see what the actual real-world latency is from any source to any destination, and in my case it's less than 1 millisecond. It's like 500 nanoseconds. So, or microseconds, I mean, so 500 microseconds. Way less than is audible. So you can be talking into a microphone, have the audio go through Dante, come back to a headset, and you can't perceive any sort of delay there. It's basically instantaneous, which is something I can't say about some of the earlier digital systems that I used. Some of them were bad enough that musicians would take out their in-ear monitors because the latency was so bad. That's not the case with Dante. It automatically configures itself with the lowest latency possible, based on your network conditions. So if you got a nice fast networking equipment, like a gigabit network with decent quality equipment, your latency is imperceivable with Dante. So okay, AV Lifesavers, yes, thanks Playman. That's the one. That's the guy who makes that box that I showed a minute ago. So nice guy too. I've chatted with him in email. He's actually making a device based on something that I mentioned in passing. That's something that would be useful. So he's going to be releasing a new product based on an idea that I just mentioned casually to him once upon a time. Intrinsic Media, how do you find the audio levels on the T1000? It's just basically a standard line level. So yeah, if you're within spec on line level audio, it should work just fine. So all right, Dan asking what bitrate I'm streaming. I'm sending out at 12 megabit right now. So Andre, do you do private studio consulting? I do. Go to my website, djprod.biz, and at the bottom of the page there's a link for consulting, and there's more information there on how that actually works. So, all right, Dan, looks good here in the UK and very stable. Nice, yeah. I've got a great internet connection here, so I can stream very reliably with very high quality here, and it just works. So, yeah. Jeff, your Dante video coming this week? Or when do you think? Editing hasn't started on it yet. So Wit is going to be doing editing on my videos, and she just barely, within the last week, got her computer set up. And she's got a couple other videos that I want to get published first before she gets into that one, before I have her do that one. So it might be a few weeks before we finally get that Dante video published. But that was something for the members on the channel. They actually had the opportunity to watch me shoot that a few weeks ago, and some of them were actually chimed in and asked questions as I went. But I have a nice lengthy video on Dante coming sometime. I don't want to commit to a specific date because I don't know when that's going to happen. But let's see, Doug Pogue asking if the ATEM camera converter is discontinued. Not that I know of. It's still listed on their website. All the suppliers still have it in stock. So as far as I know, it should be. Yeah. A-Town, I bought a Constellation 8K a month ago and need to run my first MA to the second. Switcher doesn't have the capability to do that. Can I loop the output directly to the input of a switcher? Yes, you can. That's not really recommended, though. These switchers are designed where you take the higher numbered MEs and then cascade those signals down to the lower numbered. So if you need something like that, you do your primary switching on ME2 and take the output of ME2 and then feed that into ME1 and go that direction. Although you can, if you want to tie up an output and input, you can loop one back through. But the caveat that does add one additional frame of latency on the video coming through that source. So, all right, Spencer. There's no system is perfect. I have two important points for Dante. One, make sure the firmware is up to date. Things may get odd otherwise. And two, redundant networks are your friend. Yes. So, Spencer runs AV at a. I know Spencer. He runs AV at one of the local venues here, and he knows this stuff pretty well. So heed his advice, and I would agree with what he said there. Firmware, Dante firmware is really easy to upgrade. Their Dante controller software, their free software, does upgrades on most devices, and for the ones that it doesn't, the manufacturer makes software available to do that. And you will get better, more reliable, more consistent performance if your firmware is up to date. And also the redundant networks. Most Dante devices, this one being one of the obvious exceptions, have two network connections on them. And that's designed for redundancy. So if one network goes down, it automatically, completely, silently, inaudibly switches to the other. So basically, all devices are transmitting on both channels, both connections all the time. And if there's an interruption on one, it can get the audio from the other. Those need to be completely independent networks, not two connections to the same switch. They need to be completely separate networks. So. But yes, that is a great tip. So, is my chair low? It probably is a little bit low. So yeah, and the camera position is probably a little bit different too. So I had the camera taken down for a little while. I just barely put it back up, and I haven't done a great job of re-aiming it. Let's see. A lot of churches are using Dante so they can do multiple mixes for venue and stream. That's not necessarily a feature of Dante. That just allows mix the connectivity easier. But yes, doing multiple mixes is something that you're going to find in basically every mixer above a certain price point. You know, where you have auxes or different. You can do it with matrices. You can do it with sub-mixes or any number of ways of doing that. But it's very common to have one mix for your front of house, for your main PA system, and then a separate mix for live streaming. In a lot of cases, you might have one for like a cry room or overflow or whatever. So higher end mixers have that capability, and it's nice when the mixer has Dante, so that gets sent out over the same Ethernet connection as everything else. So yes. So hey, A-Town, thanks for the membership. Awesome. Deadline, saw one of your videos you're doing PoE to your Sony SRGs. May I ask what PoE adapter you're using? It's a TP-Link, just the cheap one that I got on Amazon. It's less than $20. I did have to make a custom power cable for it. The Sony uses a proprietary power connection. And in one of the videos I have on my channel here, I mentioned exactly what that is. I can't remember the model number off the top of my head, but one of the videos here on the channel I did mention what that connector is, and I think I may have even mentioned where I found mine. So, yeah. Alright. Dame, which BMD advanced panels could control two ATEMs at the same time. I thought they could. I thought they mentioned that. I mean, I've never tried it myself, but I thought they could do that. So, yeah. Australian Hollyland distributor has new firmware coming for T1000. That would be nice if we can make the audio performance better, though I wonder if that's possible. I think the main limitation of the T1000 in terms of audio quality is the fact that it's using DECT for its audio. So, did I miss any? I kind of got kind of jumping around a little bit. So. Okay, one that I probably didn't cover well enough. So I don't know how to say your name. P-Belb, whatever. If you already have a Dante audio network and mixer, do you need their base station? Can you make do with just the belt packs and existing mixer? You absolutely can make do with an existing mixer. So if I wanted to, I could use this belt pack with my Yamaha TF3. So the audio from here just goes to one of the channels on the TF3. Use one of the aux buses to build the intercom mix, and then send the output of that mix back to these belt packs. You don't have to have their special base station in order to make that work. So that you can use any audio mixer that has Dante you want with these belt packs. And I did that a little bit before I got my new intercom system that I'm using here in the trailer. So yeah. Alrighty. Am I missing anything else? Let's see if anybody's chimed in. Rogers, I need to play recorded video during my live stream. I'm using an A10 Mini Pro. What device would I use to play the recorded video during the live streams? I want it to be seamless. I've got a couple videos that I released here on this channel this last summer, July-ish, somewhere in there, about doing video playback, and I highlight how to do it using the HyperDeck Studio Mini, there we go, and software. So in this case, Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is actually the way I do playback more than anything else. And just a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I published a video on how to use the Ultra Studio 3G, Ultra Studio Mini 3G from Blackmagic. You can connect Premiere or Final Cut or Resolve to that device and then play out HDMI with that. So that's a great solution. It's pretty affordable. So Jeremy asking, sorry if this is what was answered, opinion on Unity comms. So I personally haven't used it. You know, I haven't had in that situation where I need remote connectivity. That's really the big advantage Unity has over the other solutions, be able to do intercom over the internet. I have not had a situation where I've needed that. So I haven't personally used it. I've talked to a lot of people who have, and most of them do seem to love it. My big problem with Unity is the cost. It can be very expensive to get into. So, yeah. Okay, Deadline asking, do I use separate VLAN for my Dante gear, and is it really necessary? I do use a separate VLAN for my Dante, not because it's required or that I'm necessarily worried about collisions with other traffic, network traffic, but because I want, well, basically because there are a lot of venues here in the area, as Spencer in the chat can attest, that have their own Dante networks. And when I go to work in those venues, in order for me to get audio from there, all I have to do is plug my Dante network into their Dante network, and then I get all the audio that I need. So I can get their master mix. I can pull from individual mics if I need to mix in some ambience or something like that, or just if I need to tweak my own mix separate for the video feed, different than what's being used for front of house. I can do that because all the same audio sources are available to me that are available to them. So I want more of this microphone, I can just turn up that particular microphone, you know, after I route it to my mixer. So but it's a separate network from the rest of my network because I need for that network to be flexible in what IP address ranges that it uses. So on my trailer I use 10 dot addresses. A lot of venues use 192 addresses. My Dante network, when I'm not connected to another venue, it's actually using auto-assigned addresses, so the 169.254 addresses. All the devices on the network are set to basically automatically obtain an address, and if they can't, then they'll use auto-assign address. So what happens is as soon as I go to one of those venues, I plug into their Dante network, and then my devices take on the IP address scheme of the venue. And so all my Dante devices can then communicate with everything that's at the venue without me having to change any of the networking within my trailer. So my 10 dot addresses in my trailer are totally separate, totally independent from the addresses that are used by my Dante equipment. In the cases where I do need to get audio from my main network onto my Dante network, I can just do a simple network cable to bridge the two. So I just do a quick patch cable from a Dante port on my switch to a LAN port on my switch, and that integrates the two. That also puts all of my Dante devices on my 10 dot network without having to reconfigure anything. In fact, as I'm running that right now, that's actually how I have it configured at the moment. So, but yes, so having it as a separate network makes that easier to do. And I also prioritize that traffic, so any of the network traffic that's coming from my trailer going into my breakout box, my fiber breakout box, the Dante stuff is given higher priority than everything else. So everything on that VLAN is prioritized over everything else, so that audio will always flow no matter what else is going on the network. You know, say some sort of crazy situation where you've got a device that's flooding in the network, my Dante will remain unaffected because that traffic is prioritized over everything else. So, all right. Bent A&H a few days ago stated that they released free software on their StageBox D168 Dante. Awesome. Yes. And Alan and Heath has not necessarily been a huge proponent of Dante in the past. I'm glad they're finally coming around, because Dante is pretty darn cool, and it's universal. I should also mention that I'm not sure that I mentioned this in the Dante video, but Dante is compatible with AES-67, which is kind of a platform-neutral way to send audio over a network, and most of the big players out there that use Ethernet are also supporting AES-67. So your Dante devices can talk to audio devices from other companies as well. There are some big exceptions to that. Behringer really likes AES-50, not compatible. They also have their own Ultralink, not compatible. But most of the big players are supporting Dante at this point, so it's pretty universal. So, Kevin, I just realized that belt packs can be used for IFB2. Yeah, in fact, I've done that a number of times. So, plug in, especially if you have one that has a standard headset jack in it, you plug in a pair of IEMs in in-ear monitors, and bingo, you've got IFB right there. So, very easy. So Clifford, in essence, you can use one of the belt packs to create a mix minus. Did I hear between the lines right? So most of the Dante-based network intercom systems that are out there do operate on mix minus, and what that means is that the audio mix that's coming to this device does not include its own local audio. So if I'm talking into this headset plugged into this, my audio is going out, but the feed coming back to me does not contain my own voice. That's the way most of these work. That's not the way I work. And the main reason I don't do that is because I don't want to build a separate mix minus for every single person running one of these belt packs. So I build one universal mix that goes to everything, and I turn off the local side tone in the pack. And the latency is so low that you would never know that it's going from the belt pack to my fiber breakout channel, over the fiber connection into a network switch in my trailer, over to the mixer, where it's being mixed, and then send back out the same way it came. And you'd never know. The latency is so low that you would never even be aware of that. But that allows me to get away with creating one mix that's universal to everything instead of creating individual mixes for each belt pack. Now, the way that these were actually designed and intended by the manufacturer to be used was for them to be used in mix minus fashion, and that the base station that I showed earlier does build by default mix minus feeds for each one of the belt packs. But it's not a requirement. I'm doing it without that, and it works really well. It works great. So, okay, let's see. Bogus media, but a real mixer of the base station is needed. There's no simple software that a PC can do the mix, right? Well, I mean, if you had some software on a computer, you could use Dante Virtual Sound Card to get the audio in and out and do mixing that way. So you could actually do it with a PC. So it is absolutely possible. I'm not aware of software that would make that easy off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's something out there. So yeah, you could absolutely do that. So Playman, I think Studio Tech also makes a box to specifically join two separate Dante networks into one. I think you're right. I think I've seen something like that. So. All right, Brandon, do you share how to make SuperSource animated transitions with variable speed like the ones A2Z Productions channel? I'm on A's companion over X keys for control of constantly changing buttons and looks. So I haven't seen what you're talking about with A2Z Productions, but these transitions that I do here, I wrote the scripts to do these in just macros in a language called Lua. And the reason I did that is because it actually is a programming language. It's not a simple list of instructions like Companion uses. So basically, I couldn't possibly achieve these animations using Companion on its own. Sure, if somebody wants to sit down and write a plugin for Companion, it would technically be possible. But Just Macros, they have a free version. It's very powerful. It was really easy for me to create these scripts to do that. And doing something like that using Companion would be a lot harder. Also, Lua is a fairly easy to learn language, so if somebody wants to take my scripts and make changes to them, they can. In fact, I have a lot of people doing that. If you were to go to my Discord server and look in the discussions about my SuperSource macro software, there are a lot of people that are making changes in it. They're making their own modifications, making their own tweaks. And that's going to be a lot harder to do with a plugin in Companion. Companion is cool. There's a lot of cool things that are going on there, but it is pretty limited in terms of what you can make it do without having to create a custom plugin. So that's kind of where I'm at. Just Macros hasn't really been supported for a long time. The guy who created it has mostly disappeared off the face of the internet. We're not seeing updates to it, but it does still work. Even though it was written for using ATEMs with version software 6.3, it does still work just fine with the ATEM 8 series software. At some point, I probably will write a standalone app to do these animations. Just Macros probably does have a finite life. It's probably not going to be available and we're still working for too many more years. But for right now, it is the best solution to achieve what I'm doing with that. That said, Ian Morris, who is a regular contributor to this channel, has taken my original version of that and converted it over to PowerShell, and so you can do these animations without using the Just Macros software, and so it gives you another possible solution. I should also mention, this has only been available to people on the Discord server. This last weekend I published a new version of these animation scripts that do allow them to be triggered from BitFocus Companion. You still have to have Just Macros to actually do the animations, but you can use Companion in order to trigger the animation. So I say for example, I want layout number 3, go. There is instructions in the latest version of the scripts that are available only there on Discord for how to do that and how to make that work. So I can see I've got a Stream Deck back here, and that's connected into Companion, and I have one page set up there to trigger animations on that as well. All right. Dante is very cool, and the guys at Audinate are also great guys. Yeah, I've actually been interacting quite a bit with a number of guys that are over there at Audinate, and they're extremely friendly, extremely helpful. I've been very impressed. My only thing I wish would change with Dante is the cost of, not implementation, but the cost that people are charging for devices that have Dante. It's actually pretty inexpensive to add Dante, but for some reason manufacturers that are creating Dante hardware are charging a premium, more of a premium than I think they probably should. But yeah, it is what it is. But you can get into Dante fairly inexpensively if it's something that you want to do. And the Dante virtual sound card software is $30, I think, if I remember right. So pretty expensive there. And then the AVIO adapters, I don't think I have any handy. But the AVIO adapters, $109, $144 for those. You don't have to have a Dante mixer to use them. In fact, when I help out with some church services here locally, most Sundays, I just have 2 AVIO adapters that send audio over a network. And so when I go to bring in my gear, I run a single Ethernet cable from the wall to my equipment, and that gives me both an internet connection and audio from the building. So in another room, I have one of the AVIO adapters plugged into an audio feed there, and that plugs into the network. And then on my end, I just have another AVIO going into my audio mixer. And so single connection, I'm getting both internet and audio from the facility. I don't have to run separate audio cables. So pretty nifty there. All right. Michael Reed can say, couldn't Dante Via work as the base station? I guess you probably could do that, because it does do some simple mixing. You probably wouldn't want to run a lot of sources with that. The thing I've noticed with Dante Via, though, is it does have a fair amount of latency to it. So if you're looking for low latency mixing, that's probably not an ideal solution for doing that. So, okay, Orville asking what's the model of the Studio Technology belt pack. This is the 372A. Probably really can't read that, but it's 372A, and I got this from Markertech. And they have two different models that are very similar. The 372A has the 5-pin connector, and then the 373A has a 4-pin connector. So this is the connector that's normally used with RTS systems, and the 4-pin is what's usually used with Clearcom systems. So they have models that work with both. And the main reason I went with this is it also has the TRRS connection, so you can use it with gaming style or PC style headsets in addition to the more expensive Intercom headsets that are out there. So again, $385 is what I paid for this guy. I have a couple of them. Used them on a couple productions, and they work great. They work really, really well. They got plenty of gain. They can be plenty loud enough, and both on the listen side and on the microphone side. So, you know, these biodynamic. The microphones are very quiet, very, very quiet on these compared to some other ones. And so it's important to be able to have a gain adjustment, and the ST controller software that Studio Technologies makes to control these allows you to adjust the gain with a pretty wide range. And so I've been able to accommodate multiple different types of headsets with these with no problem whatsoever. So. Okay, Bogus Media, A to Z scripts or macros in ATEM software. You need to make macros for every layout to every layout. 1-to-1, 2-to-1, so forth. Okay, so that's the big advantage that my stuff has there, is that it takes whatever is currently on screen and then figures out how to make a transition to whatever you want to show. So as you see that I'm doing this, I can transition from any shot to any other shot, and it automatically does the appropriate moves in order to make that happen. And for the keen eye among you, you notice that there are a few new animation types that are going on here, like zoom in, zoom out. Sometimes, like that one, that's a reveal. You notice that this overhead shot was revealed from behind the other. So I'm making changes on the software constantly, and those changes are available exclusively in the Discord discussion right now. So. Alright, Deadline, thanks for your membership. Memberships on this channel are there to help make sure that I can keep delivering content here. So that's basically there to cover costs, and very much appreciated. So let's see. Kevin, yes, Dante VIA does have a bit of latency, but for calling a show, maybe cheaper way to get into Dante technology for Intercom before someone can afford a base station. Yeah, because VIA is $50, and the cheapest Dante mixers are hundreds. So yes, yeah. All right. Spencer asking if you're able to plug in two headsets at the same time. You technically can, but they're wired in parallel internally. These two are wired in parallel. So if you were doing two headsets, you'd want some that have similar impedance. Otherwise, one's going to be really loud, the other one's going to be quiet, very quiet, or some other sort of weird issues you might come up with. So I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend doing that, although technically they are wired in parallel. So, Aaron, I'm jealous of all the super source effects. Maybe someday they'll bring that to the ATEM Mini. The super source in the ATEM Mini, don't hold your breath. Something they're reserving for their higher end products. So, but yeah, I certainly love being able to do all those animations. It classes up the videos quite a bit. The people who seem to be most impressed by it are when I'm doing the virtual events, and we're going between multiple Zoom calls. So being able to do a transition where, like, we go full screen and from one presenter, and then it shrinks down to be just a window where you got other presenters that are on the screen at the same time. They seem to really eat that up. It looks like network broadcast television, and I keep adding more features to the software in order to make it look more and more like that, so it looks more polished and more professional. So let's see. Spencer asking what's the link to Discord. If you go to djp.li/discord, that will take you to the main Discord server, and then the ATEM and SuperSource animation is just one of the channels within there. So, yeah. A SuperSource on an ATEM Mini alongside 12 SDI ports and 25 HDMI ports. Yep, yep. That's what they're going to come up with on the next ATEM Mini, right? So, yeah, the big problem with doing these sorts of animations is the video processing in order to resize those video sources. It's actually fairly hard to do, and it requires quite a bit of processing power, and so that's why you don't find it on lower end units. Yes, the ATEM Mini does have a single DVE, which can resize a single source, but the 2ME Production Studio has the SuperSource, which has 4 DVEs plus a separate DVE that can be used by the keyers. So you can do all sorts of fun things. For some reason, it's not letting me release some of these links you guys are sending into the chat. Like Andrew just sent a YouTube link, and I'm trying to publish it, but YouTube's throwing an error. So don't know why, but so yeah, we're an hour and 16 minutes so far. So get your last questions in. My voice is again about shot. So if you have any last questions, get those in here. Otherwise, I'm going to start wrapping things up. But for anybody just joining or joining recently, basically recommended for anybody who's getting into Intercom right now that one of the best options to get it to do that is Dante-based a Dante-based solution. So in this case, Studio Technologies Belt Packs, and they have a Dante-based mixer specifically made for Intercom, and that combination of things is actually less expensive than the more traditional ancient analog stuff that's offered by companies like Clearcom. So for less money you get something that sounds way better, way more future-proof, and interacts with other things in a much better fashion. You know, Dante is Dante, so you can take Dante audio from any device that supports it, send it to any other device, and it just works. You don't have to go through any sort of weird analog conversions. You don't have to worry about canceling audio, nulling audio, any of that kind of stuff. It just works, and so that's kind of what the direction I'm steering people these days. So even though Dante is scary, sounds super expensive, sounds like it can be complicated and hard to understand, it's actually pretty easy, and it's becoming more and more affordable all the time. These belt packs cost less than the Clearcom units, and the base station costs less. You can get cheaper headsets that work with these than you can with the Clearcom system. So you're talking half to 2/3 of what it would cost to do a similar Clearcom system by going with something that works on Dante, which is just mind-boggling because, you know, Dante has traditionally been something that's reserved for productions that have a higher end budget. That's all changing. Everything's changing in that world. So last couple of questions. So Mark asking, can you do a DSK with one source, or do you need two separate sources for the key? You can do a DSK with a single source. You just make sure the key is either not being used, or you can set it to black and use a black video source as the key. So Dame, I want to do a HyperDeck recorder that can record more than one channel at a time to match the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. Well, you probably just have to get multiple HyperDecks. There isn't any. If you want one from AJA, though, they have the Key Pro Go. It can record 4 video sources at the same time. So, Andrew Dion, by the way, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Yeah. Hopefully 2021 will be better than 2020, right? Dame asking, what are your thoughts on pure analog intercoms? So we have some about 200 pounds or $300 a pack, which are very cheap. Well, this isn't much more, and it's much better solution. So yeah. FPS for video conferencing, 24 cinematic is 30 okay. What about 60 FPS? I wouldn't do 60 for video conferencing. Nothing's moving around. You're not talking about a lot of motion. So 30 is plenty. Yeah, 30 is kind of the default for anything that's not sports. So yeah, or if you're outside the US, 50 frames per second would be used for sports, and then you can use 25 for most everything else. So Rob Fisher asking if I have a link for that unit. I will post links in the description after this video is wrapped up. So, okay, Aaron, Dante's definitely a way to go. We've been using Glen Sound Beatrice boxes for a couple of years and sound amazing. Not having to convert custom 4-wire boxes is also good. Yeah, I should mention that. So there's a box that I have been meaning to purchase, but I have not got it yet. So this Express IP Mini, this is what I'm going to be using for commentators, announcers, basically. And this is Dante, so a single internet connection, or a single Ethernet connection provides all of the audio for this, and it's there for two presenters, 2 on-air personalities, so headset and microphone for each. You can adjust side tone, so the level of your own voice. You can adjust the level of the other commentator, so if I'm commentator 1, you can adjust the level of commentator 2. It also has 2 channels of talkback, so you can talk back to the crew. It has queuing and has program feeds. So all these things are controlled separately. And again, it's for 2 commentators within a single unit. And this unit costs less than 2 separate, much simpler units. So it's going to be the way I'm going to go. I will be buying one of these. I'm just holding out for payment on one of the last events that I did. And as soon as I get paid on that, I will be ordering one of these. So yeah, commentator units are a great solution for with Dante. It's like you're running one single cable instead of a whole pile of them. And Studio Technology that produces this also makes dedicated commentary units as well. So I have one of their old analog ones, and I have to run 4 cables to it if I want to use it instead of one single Ethernet cable. So, alrighty. Ivan, can you set that Dante unit to mic is always on, for example, commentator on sport event? Yeah, so this, like a lot of other ones, if you just do a quick tap, that turns it on and leaves it on. The other way you can use it is press and hold, and then it only stays on as long as you're holding the button. So long press for just temporary, and then quick tap will turn it on and off. And I don't think I have my setup wired right now where I can demonstrate that. But yeah, so you could absolutely use this as a commentator unit. The A to D converter in here is actually quite good. So as long as you put a good microphone on it, it could be used for high quality commentator unit as well. Deadline, might need to bump up my switch to PoE++ for these packs. These use very, very, very little power. They don't even require PoE+. Just the original PoE works great for these. They're extremely low power. I think if I remember right, when I had one of these plugged in, and my switch was saying it was drawing less than a watt. So yeah. So anyway, great way to go. And being able to remotely configure these things is pretty awesome too. So yeah. And thanks, Playman Drop, for the membership. Very much appreciated. So yes. Okay, we'll go another like 3-4 minutes. So get your last minute questions, and then we're gonna go. So again, I will have my video about the fundamentals of Dante and how I'm using it here in the trailer coming out. I don't know exactly when. Hopefully before too long. It was something we shot about a month ago, and it's just waiting for editing right now. It's in a queue of other videos that need to be edited. So just whenever that gets edited, is when that will get posted. So Spencer Powell asking if I have a suggestion for a PoE switch. A lot of it's gonna depend on how many connections you need, but I'm gonna show you a couple that I've used here. TP-Link PoE switch. Alrighty, so here's a smart switch, and I've got, yeah, I've purchased 4 times. I probably have more than that actually. So this is a smart switch, so you can do things like virtual LANs with it. Only has 4 PoE ports, so it may not be ideal for powering a bunch of PoE equipment. There's a 16 port. Let's see. Where's the other one I've used? TP-Link has a cheaper one. It's like $30, which is 8 port. Again, I think that's probably only 4 PoE ports though. I'm not seeing it in the results here, but I like the TP-Link stuff. It's pretty affordable and it works pretty well. And oh, I do mention this in my full Dante video, but when you're going to purchase a switch, make sure it doesn't have the triple E power saving feature, because that messes up Dante. So I've experienced that. It actually is a real problem. So yeah, so don't get one of the power efficient switches if you're buying specifically for using with Dante. So okay, Dame, what Ethernet cables do you use? Not just normal ones or flexible with Intercom? I just use normal ones because there's a chance they're going to get damaged anyway. So why put a lot of money into a cable that probably going to have to throw away at some point? So yeah, I mean, I've been buying. I get monoprice a lot, but I also make my own quite a bit too when I need a custom length. I build a lot of my own cables. So I don't know how to say your name, Helgi. Nice, but I don't agree about the air text. You used to use it in streaming of 7 loud concerts in the prison during Christmas. No problem hearing each other in the headsets. Again, I've used them on a couple of events, and we could barely hear the technical director, and that was in a really quiet environment. So I was not impressed. 6 of these boxes, and can use an X32 rack with Dante Carrier Route audio to and from devices and any production audio. Great product. Yeah. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I've got an X32 that I'm using for my intercom here. So Aaron mentioned he's a big fan of Unify switches. Yes, Unify does make great products. Yeah, and especially if you're something that you need. If you need something you have to do management on, Unify is a good way to go. They have pretty good management interfaces on them. Yeah, so, but I'm using TP-Link for a lot of my networking equipment. It all has browser-based configuration, nice and easy, and it support a ton of features for the price. So that's kind of where I've kind of standardized on TP-Link for most of my networking gear for my trailer and video production related stuff. I use some different stuff in my home, but so anyway, that's kind of where I've been. So anyway, so yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and Kevin, thank you for the membership. Very much appreciated. I think I've gained like 4 or 5 new members here on the channel today. That's awesome. So anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys. Again, if you're just joining, go back and watch the video from the beginning. Talk about why I'm steering people towards Dante-based intercom at this point, even for lower budget solutions. Just it offers you so many advantages that you don't go with the analog solutions that are out there. So anyway, yeah. So thanks everyone for watching. Also, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to do video production related content about once a week when I can, when I have the available time. But I do take suggestions on the types of videos that you want to see, although my backlog of videos that I need to shoot is getting pretty lengthy, so even if I do agree to shoot something, talk about a particular topic, it could be, at this point, it's probably going to be 6 months before I can get to it. So, yeah. So, anyway. Another membership. Yeah, awesome. So, thanks to Rosenberger. Anyway, so I think that's going to do it for now, guys. Again, thanks for tuning in. I don't know exactly when next live stream is going to be. I don't have a plan. These are kind of done off the cuff when I can. But I do have more videos coming soon. Have another stream team video coming before too long. Again, got the Dante video coming at some point. Yeah, and I will be shooting another video here before too long about my new intercom system. Completely gutted and replaced most everything in the intercom here in the trailer, and it's awesome. So anyway, so that's it. Thanks everybody. We'll talk to you later.